The first time the doctor said, "She may never walk again," everyone in the room looked at Vanessa. I looked at Arthur Reed. He stood near the window in his black coat, jaw tight, eyes sharp, planning the version of this tragedy the world would be allowed to see. Miranda covered her mouth and whispered, "Oh my God." Vanessa lay still in the hospital bed, pale under the white light. When her eyes turned to me, they were wet, fragile, almost childlike. Almost. "Ethan," she said softly, "come here." I walked to her side because that was what everyone expected. She reached for my hand. "You heard him." I did. Her fingers closed around mine. Weak grip, careful voice, perfect timing. "I'm scared," she whispered. I lowered my head and played my role. "I'm here." The doctor cleared his throat. "We'll continue treatment, of course, but spinal trauma is unpredictable. Recovery may be limited." "Limited?" Arthur snapped. "What does that mean?" "It means," the doctor said, "we need time." Vanessa turned her face toward me again. "You won't leave me, right?" Every pair of eyes in that room moved to me. Instead of pity, I felt cold certainty rising in me like smoke. Vanessa would walk again. I knew it because 2 years before our wedding, I had stood outside Arthur's study and heard him arguing with a specialist on speakerphone. I had heard words I was never meant to hear. Temporary nerve suppression, high chance of recovery, aggressive therapy, excellent long-term outlook. Arthur buried that report then. He would bury the next one too. And Vanessa? Vanessa knew how to survive by turning weakness into power. I squeezed her hand just enough to satisfy the room. "No, I won't leave." Miranda started crying harder. Arthur gave me one nod, as if I had signed a contract in front of him. Vanessa closed her eyes. "I knew you'd say that." Of course she did. An hour later, reporters were gathering outside the hospital. I could see cameras through the glass doors. Arthur stepped beside me. "You'll speak if necessary." I looked at him. "About my wife?" "About loyalty," he said. "People need to see stability." I almost laughed. She just lost the use of her legs. And that is exactly why appearances matter. I stared at him. "You talk like this is a board meeting." "For this family," he said, "everything is." He walked away before I could answer. When I returned to Vanessa's room, she was alone. The machines hummed softly. Her face had changed. The tears were gone. "You were quiet," she said. "I didn't know there was a correct performance time." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't start with me today." I shut the door. "You're in a hospital bed and you still sound like my boss." "I sound like someone whose life just shattered." "No," I said. "You sound like someone making sure every piece lands where she wants it." She held my gaze. Then her mouth curved, small and dangerous. "Good. Then you still understand me." That should have shocked me. It didn't. "What do you need from me?" I asked. "Everything you promised," she said. "Your name, your face, your patience, your silence." I let out a breath. "And if I get tired?" "You won't." Her voice turned soft again as footsteps passed outside. "You're a good husband, Ethan." The door opened before I could answer. A nurse stepped in first. Behind her I saw a wheelchair. Then I saw Lily. I had not looked at Vanessa's younger sister in years. At family dinners she was always placed a little too far from the center, smiling at the right moments, speaking only when spoken to, as if her whole life had been arranged to make Vanessa shine brighter. But now she rolled herself into the room with quiet control, her dark hair tucked behind one ear, her face tired and gentle. "Can I come in?" she asked. Vanessa's tone changed at once. "Lily, you came." "Of course I came." Lily looked at me then, and something in her eyes caught me off guard. No performance, no strategy, just sadness. "I'm sorry," she said to Vanessa. Then she looked back at me and asked softly, "Are you okay?" No one else had asked me that. Not the doctors, not Arthur, not Miranda, not even my wife. For a second I forgot how to answer, and for the first time in years I saw the forgotten sister clearly. When Vanessa came home from the hospital, the Reed mansion changed overnight. A ramp appeared at the front entrance. Nurses rotated through the halls. Fresh flowers arrived every morning. Reporters waited outside the gate like hungry birds. Inside, everyone lowered their voices and wore grief like formal clothing. Vanessa ruled all of it from her bed. "Ethan," she called the first morning, her voice sharp through the speaker system Arthur had installed. "Where are you?" I stepped into her room. "Right here." "You were gone for 11 minutes. "I was getting coffee." Her eyes moved over my face. "Next time, tell me first." I set the cup down. "You don't even drink coffee." "That wasn't for me. That was for you. I wanted to see how long you'd stay away." I looked at her. "You timed me?" "Yes," she said calmly. "Sit down." So I sat. She pointed at a stack of documents on the side table. "Arthur wants me to review those before noon. Read them to me." "You have an assistant." "I have a husband." Before I could answer, Miranda walked in with a sad smile already prepared. "There you are, Ethan. You've been wonderful." "I've been present." "That is what wonderful means in moments like this," she said. Then she turned to Vanessa. "The press is asking whether you'd like to release another statement." Vanessa sighed. "No, let them wait. Sympathy grows in silence." Miranda nodded as if that were wisdom, not strategy. "Very true." I read the papers for 40 minutes. Vanessa interrupted every third sentence.
"Not that page."
"Slower. You skipped a line. You sound annoyed. Are you annoyed, Ethan?" By lunch, I felt like furniture with a pulse. In the dining room, Arthur sat at the head of the table checking his phone. Miranda discussed guest lists for a charity event. Vanessa had her tray brought in separately, as if even pain had earned her a private class. Lily sat near the far end, quiet, hands folded in her lap. Miranda looked past her and asked me, "Will you attend the investor dinner with Vanessa next week?" "She just came home," I said. Arthur answered for everyone. "Her appearance matters." Vanessa lifted her glass. "I'll be there." Lily reached for the bread basket. Miranda kept talking over her. Arthur said, "A devoted husband beside a recovering wife sends the right message." I stared at him. "Is that all I am now? A message?" He finally looked up. "Don't be dramatic." Lily spoke softly. "He's not being dramatic. He's being honest." The table went still. Miranda forced a smile. "Lily, dear, no one asked." Lily's hand froze above the bread basket. I noticed. I watched her pull her hand back. Small movement, quiet face. But I felt the insult like it had landed on me. That night, I found her in the back garden under the covered terrace, a blanket over her legs, a book closed in her lap. "You disappeared after dinner," I said. She smiled faintly. "That's my family's favorite magic trick." I leaned against the stone railing. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For not saying anything sooner." "You did say something. You looked angry. Around here that counts as a speech." I laughed before I could stop myself. She tilted her head. "There, you still remember how?" "Barely." She studied me for a moment. "Vanessa has always needed the room to bend toward her." "And you?" "I learned not to ask rooms for anything." "That's a terrible way to live." "It's an efficient one." I looked at her wheelchair, then back at her face.
"Did they always treat you like this?"
She shrugged. "I was the difficult child. You seem like the easiest person in this house. That's because you met the edited version." For the next few days, that became our pattern. Vanessa demanded, Arthur managed, Miranda performed concern, and Lily spoke to me like I was still a person. At breakfast she asked, "Did you sleep at all?" At lunch she said, "You don't have to answer every time Vanessa snaps her fingers." At midnight, when the mansion finally went quiet, she would find me in the library and ask, "Do you want silence or company?" One night I asked, "Why are you kind to me?" She looked almost embarrassed. "Because no one is kind to you here." "That's not true." She gave me a long look. "Then name one person." I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. She looked down at her hands. I used to think marriage into this family meant winning some prize. It didn't. No, she said gently. It didn't. I sat across from her, too tired to pretend anymore. After a long silence, she asked, "Were you ever happy with my sister?" I looked at her, then at the dark window beside us, and I realized I could not answer her without lying. I did not answer Lily that night. She did not press me. She only gave me a small nod, as if silence itself had told her enough, then rolled toward the door and said, "You should sleep, Ethan." "I doubt I can." "Then at least lie down and fail in private." That almost made me smile. "Good night, Lily." "Good night." After she left, I stayed in the library and stared at the dark window until my own reflection looked like a stranger. Were you ever happy with my sister? The cruelest part was that I could still remember trying to be. When I first met Vanessa, she was brilliant, direct, impossible to ignore. She looked at me as if I were the only man in the room worth testing. I mistook that for interest. Later, I mistook it for love. "Come work with me," she had said.
I already have work, she smiled over her wine glass.
"I know. That's why I'm offering you something better." Better meant closer to her. Better meant inside the Reed world. Better meant leaving behind the small firm I had built with my own hands. "You're asking me to give up a lot," I told her. "No," she said. "I'm asking you to grow." So I said yes. At first it felt like winning, then it felt like shrinking. Every time I tried to keep one piece of myself, she sanded it down. "Why are you still talking to Daniel so much?" she asked once. "He's my friend. He's small-minded. He'll keep you small too." Another time I told her, "I want to restart my consulting work." She did not yell. Vanessa never needed to yell. She just went cold. "For money?" she asked. "For myself." That made her face harden. "Everything you have is because of me." I should have left then. Instead, I apologized. At dinner 3 nights later, I finally met Nathan Hale properly. He walked into the mansion like he belonged there, carrying a bottle of wine and a smile too polished to trust. "Ethan," he said, shaking my hand, "I've heard a lot about you." "Only the approved version, I assume?" He laughed. "That depends who was talking." Vanessa, sitting near the fireplace, looked at him in a way that made something in my stomach tighten. Not warmth, not simple trust. Something older, sharper, private. Nathan poured wine for Arthur and Miranda, then stepped behind Vanessa to adjust the shawl around her shoulders. She did not flinch. She did not thank him either. That ease between them bothered me more than if they had touched too much. Arthur raised his glass. "Nathan has kept the company steady through this difficult month." Nathan gave a modest smile. "Vanessa built the machine. I'm just keeping it running." Vanessa said, "For now." He met her eyes. "For as long as you need." I heard it, not the words, the undertone. After dinner, Arthur started discussing next quarter's strategy with Nathan, as if the family table were a boardroom. Miranda added social names. Vanessa gave orders. I sat there like decoration. Then Arthur said, "Ethan, you'll attend the charity gala with Vanessa on Saturday." I looked at him. I wasn't asked. Vanessa cut in. "You're being told." "I'm not one of your employees." Her smile was thin. "No, employees get paid." The room went silent. Nathan looked down at his glass. Miranda pretended not to hear. Arthur kept eating. I felt heat crawl up my neck. Was that supposed to be funny? Vanessa tilted her head. It was supposed to be accurate. I pushed my chair back. "Excuse me." Arthur's voice followed me. "Sit down." I turned. "No." Vanessa's eyes sharpened. "Don't embarrass me." I almost laughed at that. "You already handled that part." I walked out before any of them could stop me. My hands were shaking by the time I reached the side hallway. I hated that humiliation still hit me harder than anger. "Ethan!" I turned. Lily was there, one hand on the wheel of her chair, watching me carefully. "I'm fine," I said. "Do you want to try that again?" I let out a breath. "No." She moved closer. She was cruel. She was honest. That's worse. I leaned against the wall. I gave up my work, my friends, my name, my pride. I kept telling myself marriage meant compromise. Lily's voice was quiet. Compromise is not the same as surrender. I looked at her, really looked at her. No pity, no performance, just truth. She chose me because I was easy to shape, I said. Lily held my gaze. Then stop being easy. For the first time, my anger felt cleaner than my guilt. I stopped asking how to save my marriage. I started asking why I should. The proof came to me in pieces. The first piece was a sound. I was outside Vanessa's room early that morning, holding the tea she liked but never thanked me for, when I heard movement inside.
Not the slow shift of someone helpless in bed. Not the rustle of sheets. It was heavier than that. Controlled. Careful. Then I heard her voice. "Close the door," she said. I stopped. A nurse answered, "Mrs. Reed, you shouldn't be putting weight on it without supervision." I said, "Close the door." There was a pause. Then Vanessa spoke again, lower this time. "I can manage 3 steps, maybe 4. My hand tightened around the cup. The nurse whispered, "Your husband thinks you still can't even stand." Vanessa gave a soft laugh. "My husband believes what he needs to believe." I stood there for 2 full seconds, staring at the wood grain of the door, feeling my heartbeat in my throat. Then I stepped back before anyone opened it. The second piece came that afternoon. Miranda had sent me to Vanessa's study to collect a folder Arthur needed before a board call. The room still smelled like her perfume and printer ink. Everything was arranged with the same cold order she brought into every part of her life. I found the folder in the bottom drawer of her desk. I also found a sealed envelope beneath it. Private Rehabilitation Summary. I should have put it back. Instead, I opened it. The report was clear. Muscle response improving. Nerve activity returning ahead of expectation. Limited assisted standing already achieved. High probability of functional recovery with continued therapy. Progress ahead of public narrative. I read that last line twice. Public narrative, not medical condition, not emotional state, narrative. I folded the paper with hands that no longer felt steady. So I had been right all along. Not just about the recovery, about the lie. That evening, the third piece found me on its own. Arthur's study door was half open. I had been walking past when Vanessa's voice cut through the hallway. "You're pushing too hard," she said. Arthur answered, "Your numbers are stable because people see you as tragic and brave." That sympathy won't last forever. I know how long it lasts. Then don't get arrogant. I heard the ice in her voice. I am not arrogant. I am strategic. Arthur lowered his tone, but I still caught every word. If you stand too early, the board starts asking whether you exaggerated. If the press senses manipulation, they'll tear you apart. Vanessa said, "Then I won't stand too early." "And Ethan?" A beat of silence. Then she said, "He stays where I put him." I walked away before I heard more. Not because I could not bear it, because I finally could. By dinner, I understood the shape of my marriage better than I ever had. I had not been living beside a wounded woman. I had been living inside a campaign. Vanessa noticed my silence at once. "Why are you so quiet?" she asked as the maid set down her plate. "Am I required to perform at dinner too?" Arthur looked up. Miranda stiffened. Lily watched me closely from across the table. Vanessa gave me a warning smile. "You've been moody all day." I learned from the best. Miranda set down her fork. "Please, not tonight." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "If you have something to say, Ethan, say it." I met her gaze. "Not here." For the first time in weeks, something unreadable passed across her face. Later, I found Lily in the library with a lamp on and a blanket over her knees. She looked up the moment I entered. "You look like you're about to set fire to the house," she said. "Maybe I should." That would be dramatic, even for this family. I sat across from her and rubbed my hands over my face. She waited. That was the thing about Lily. She waited without making silence feel like pressure. Finally, she asked, "What happened?" I stared at the floor. "What would you say if I told you Vanessa is not as helpless as she wants everyone to think?" Lily did not gasp. She did not pretend shock for my benefit.
She only asked, "How sure are you?" I heard her. I found a report.
I heard Arthur too. I looked up. They're hiding her recovery.
Lily's mouth tightened.
Why?
Power, sympathy, control. I laughed once, bitter and empty. Me. She held my gaze for a long moment. Then she said very calmly, "Then stop being her shield." Something in me went still. No speech, no comfort, no grand advice, just truth. I sat there hearing those words again and again. Then I nodded. That night I made my first real choice. I would not protect Vanessa anymore. After I decided I would no longer protect Vanessa, nothing outside me changed at first. That was the strangest part. The nurses still came and went. Arthur still treated pain like a public relations asset. Miranda still floated through the halls with sympathy on her face. Vanessa still called for me like I was an extension of the bed she lay in. "Ethan." I stepped into her room. "What is it?" "My shoulder hurts." "Did you tell the nurse?" "I'm telling you." I stood there. A week ago I would have rushed to her side. That morning I only asked, "Do you need medicine or attention?" Her eyes sharpened. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm tired of guessing which version of you I'm speaking to." She stared at me. "You've changed." "No," I said. "I've started noticing." I left before she could answer. Later that afternoon I found Lily in the sunroom struggling with a stack of books balanced on her lap. "I can get those," I said. She looked up at once. "You can help. You cannot hover." "I'll try to survive the difference." "That would be brave." I carried the books to the low table beside her chair. "Better?" "Yes, but don't look proud of yourself. You moved paper, not mountains." I smiled. "You make kindness sound illegal." "That's because people confuse kindness with pity, and I hate pity." I leaned against the window frame. "Noted." She adjusted the blanket over her knees. "Good, because I'm not fragile." "I know." She glanced at me.
"Do you?"
The next morning, I met Grace Lynn. I walked into the east sitting room and found Lily stretching one leg while a woman in a pale blue sweater counted softly. "Again," the woman said, "slowly." "I am going slowly," Lily muttered. "You are going stubbornly. That is different." Lily noticed me first. "Ethan, this is Grace." Grace stood and offered her hand. "Grace Lynn, physical therapist, occasional bully, full-time witness to this one's bad attitude." Lily looked offended. "My attitude is excellent." "It is memorable," Grace said. I shook her hand. "Nice to meet you." Grace studied me with quick eyes. "You're the husband." I almost corrected her, then didn't. "I am." Grace looked back at Lily. "You didn't tell me he looked half dead." Lily sighed. "That would have been rude." "Accurate," Grace said. I laughed. Grace returned to the exercise band. "Hold there, Lily. 10 seconds. Lily's jaw tightened. "Does it hurt?" I asked. Grace answered for her. "Of course it hurts. She just doesn't like admitting it." Lily exhaled slowly. "Pain is boring." Grace snorted. "That's her philosophy for everything. Surgery? Boring. Rehab? Boring. Being ignored by her family for years? Also boring." Lily shot her a look. "Grace." "What?" Grace said. "He should know you're made of steel and sarcasm." I looked at Lily. "You hide it well." She stared at the floor. "Practice helps." After the session, Grace pulled me aside near the hallway. "She doesn't ask for much," Grace said quietly. "I've noticed." "No, I mean she doesn't ask for what she deserves. There's a difference." Grace continued. "Your wife has a room full of people watching her breathe. Lily has spent most of her life learning how not to inconvenience anyone." My throat tightened. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because she trusts you." The words hit harder than they should have. When Grace left, I found Lily alone by the piano in the music room, turning a small object over in her hands. "Grace likes you," I said. "She tolerates me. That's how she shows love." I sat on the bench beside the piano. "She told me you don't ask for what you deserve." Lily let out a quiet breath. "Grace says dramatic things." Is she wrong? She was silent for a moment. Then she said, "When people keep giving you less, you stop reaching for more." I looked at her profile. "You should ask for more," I said. "From whom?" "Anyone." She turned to me then. "And what about you? Have you started asking for more?" I told the truth. I don't even know what more looks like anymore. Her eyes softened. Maybe it looks like breathing without permission. For the first time in years, I felt seen. Around Vanessa, I was an accessory. Around Lily, I was simply a man. That should have been harmless. It wasn't. Because every time Lily trusted me, every time she spoke to me without agenda, every time she made room for my silence without trying to own it, something warm and dangerous moved under my ribs. Not lust, something worse. Hope. And hope felt almost immoral in that house. That evening after dinner, Lily found me alone in the library. "I fixed this," she said, holding out a silver pocket watch. I took it carefully. "It's broken." "It was," she said. "Now it works, just not perfectly." I opened it. The hands were moving. She smiled, small and tired and real. Some things don't work the same after damage. That doesn't mean they stop being valuable. The moment everything broke, I was standing outside Vanessa's room with my hand on the door. I had come to return a file Arthur wanted signed before morning. I was about to knock when I heard Vanessa's voice, low and cutting. "You really never learn, do you?" Lily answered, quiet but steady. "I'm not here to fight. That has never stopped you from taking what is mine." My body went still. Inside the room, Lily said, "I have never taken anything from you." Vanessa laughed softly. "No? Then why do you keep looking at him like that?" There was a pause. Then Lily said, "You don't own people." "Don't lecture me," Vanessa snapped. "You've always wanted attention. You just learned to beg for it in a sweeter voice." I pushed the door open. Both of them turned toward me. Vanessa was sitting upright in bed, anger burning through the weak, tragic mask she wore for everyone else. Lily sat near the window, pale and hurt, but still composed. "What exactly is going on?" I asked. Vanessa recovered first. "Private conversation. With threats in it." She lifted her chin. "Then you heard enough." Lily looked at me. "Ethan, it's fine." "No," I said. "It isn't." Vanessa's mouth tightened. "Leave us." I did not move. "You accused her of stealing from you." Vanessa's eyes flashed. "Hasn't she?" Lily whispered, "Stop." But Vanessa had already crossed the line and knew it. "She spent her whole life wanting what I had," Vanessa said. "The room, the praise, the future. Now she wants my husband too." I looked at Lily. She looked like she wanted the floor to open beneath her. Then I looked back at Vanessa. "You really think this is about competition?" "It's always been competition." "For you, maybe." Her face changed. "Careful, Ethan." "No," I said. "You be careful." Lily turned her chair toward the door. "I'm leaving." I stepped aside for her. As she passed me, she did not look up. That hurt more than Vanessa's voice ever could. That night, Vanessa called me into her room again. I stayed near the doorway. She studied me with cold amusement. "You look offended." "I heard how you spoke to Lily." She needed reminding. "Of what? Her place?" Vanessa's smile was thin. "Of boundaries." I laughed once. "You fake weakness for sympathy, lie to your family, manipulate the board, and somehow Lily is the problem." Her eyes sharpened. "You think I don't know what's happening?" "What is happening?" "You are drifting," she said. "Emotionally, morally, publicly. It's embarrassing." I stared at her. "Embarrassing?" "Yes, I expected better from you." That sentence should have crushed me. Instead, it cleared something inside me. "Why did you marry me, Vanessa?" She did not hesitate. "Because you were useful." The room went silent. She kept going. "You were stable, presentable, loyal. You looked at me like I mattered more than anyone else in the world." She tilted her head. "Men like that are rare." "Men like what?" "Too loyal to leave a broken woman." Whatever old love I had left died there. Not loudly, Not dramatically, just completely. The next evening, Arthur insisted on a family dinner because investors were coming later in the week and he wanted internal harmony. Vanessa sat at the table in elegant silk, tragic and untouchable. Miranda wore pearls and disapproval. Lily looked exhausted before the meal even began. Arthur raised his glass. "We maintain dignity in this house." I set down my fork. "Then let's start telling the truth." The table went still. Vanessa's eyes locked onto mine. "Ethan." "No," I said. "I'm done." Arthur's voice dropped. "Watch yourself." "I have been watching for months. I am done being Vanessa's husband in every way that matters. I am done protecting her lies. I am done standing beside a performance." Miranda gasped. "Have you lost your mind?" Vanessa spoke through her teeth. "You will regret this." "Maybe," I said, "but not as much as I regret staying." Arthur slammed his hand on the table. "You owe this family everything." "I owe this family nothing." Miranda stared at Lily, then back at me, horror spreading across her face. "Oh my God, this is about her." I did not look away. "Yes," I said, "I choose Lily." The silence after that felt unreal. Then everything exploded. Arthur stood so fast his chair crashed backward.
"Get out!" Miranda's face twisted. "You disgusting, ungrateful man." Vanessa's control finally shattered. "You can't choose her." I met her eyes. I already did. Lily looked at me like I had set the whole house on fire. Tears filled her eyes. "Ethan," she whispered, "do you understand what this will cost us both?" I walked to her, heart pounding hard enough to hurt badly. "Yes," I said, "I'm choosing anyway." By morning, the house already felt hostile in a new way. Not loud, not chaotic. Sharper than that. Servants avoided looking at me. Miranda refused to speak to Lily. Arthur had his assistant deliver a written notice telling me to leave the mansion within 48 hours. Vanessa stayed in her room and sent silence through the walls like a threat. Lily found me in the front hall holding the envelope. "What is it?" she asked. "Your father wants me gone." She looked at the paper. That was fast. "He never wastes cruelty." She met my eyes. "Are you leaving?" "Yes." Her face changed just slightly. "Good." I frowned. "Good?" "Yes," she said, "because staying here would let them keep deciding who you are." Before I could answer, Arthur's voice cut across the hall. "He doesn't need your encouragement, Lily." We both turned. Arthur came down the stairs with the calm rage of a man used to winning by volume or money. "You've already done enough damage." Lily straightened in her chair. I did not force Ethan to speak. "No," Arthur said. "You just waited your whole life for your sister to fall." For the first time, Lily did not lower her eyes. "That's not true," she said. "I waited my whole life for someone to stop lying." Arthur's face hardened. "You should remember who pays for your care." "And you should remember," I said, stepping closer, "that money is not the same as decency." Arthur looked at me like he would enjoy destroying me. "I will," he said quietly. He meant it. By noon, my cards were frozen. My office access was revoked, and 2 friendly calls from former business contacts had already turned cold. Arthur was moving fast. So I called Daniel Cross. He answered on the second ring. "You finally sound like a man in trouble." "I am." "Took you long enough. Where are you?" "Still at the mansion." "That's stupid." "I know." "Good," Daniel said. "Pack what matters. I'm coming." When Daniel arrived, he looked around the Reed estate and whistled once. Nothing says emotional health like a house big enough to echo bad decisions. Despite everything, I smiled. He set his briefcase on the table. "Tell me exactly what Arthur has done." I handed him the notice, then the banking alerts on my phone. Daniel read them, jaw tightening. "He's trying to isolate you before you can think." "He's done it before." "Not this time." Daniel looked at me. "Do you want to survive this, or do you want to crawl back?" "Survive." "Good. Then stop acting guilty and start acting precise."
That afternoon, he filed emergency motions, called 3 people I had not spoken to in years, and reminded me what my own name sounded like outside the Reed family. Meanwhile, the cracks around Vanessa widened. At dinner, Nathan arrived late. He kissed the air near Miranda's cheek, nodded at Arthur, and barely looked at Vanessa. She noticed. "You missed the board prep call," she said. Nathan loosened his tie. "I was handling fallout." "From what?" He gave a short laugh. "From your husband choosing your sister at the table, in case you forgot." Arthur said, "The situation is contained." Nathan looked at him. "No, it's expensive." Vanessa's voice went cool. "Watch your tone." He met her eyes. "Then give me a reason not to." That silence told me more than words could. Later that week, Daniel called me from his office. "Rumors are moving," he said. A board member reached out. "Who?" "Julian Voss." That got my attention.
Why? He says some timelines around Vanessa's condition aren't lining up. I sat forward. Medical timelines? Rehab reports, attendance records, internal approvals, small things, enough to make careful people nervous. For once I said nothing. Daniel did. "You didn't leak this?" "No." "Good. Then somebody inside is panicking." The next person to change was Lily. Miranda cornered her in the sitting room that evening and said, "You should be ashamed. Your sister is suffering, and you've made yourself the center of gossip." Lily looked up from her book. "No, Vanessa made herself the center of a lie. I just stopped apologizing for being nearby." Miranda actually stepped back. I had never seen Lily speak like that. When we were alone later, I said, "You were brave." She shook her head. "No, I was tired." "That may be the same thing." She looked at me for a long moment. "Are you sure about this?" "Yes." "Even now?" "Especially now." Her voice softened. "I don't want to become your rebellion." "You aren't," I said. "You're the first honest thing I chose." She looked down and I could see how much that cost her to believe. Then Nathan made his move. At the next board meeting, he did not defend Vanessa. He defended himself. Julian asked, "Why were certain recovery updates kept unofficial?" Nathan spread his hands. "Vanessa handled her own disclosures. I respected her privacy." It was smooth, cowardly, effective. He was cutting the rope before the ship sank. When Daniel told me afterward, I leaned back in my chair and exhaled slowly. I had spent so long imagining revenge, but as Vanessa's world started collapsing under the weight of its own lies, I understood something simple. Karma was moving faster than I ever could. The board meeting was supposed to be controlled. Arthur arranged it in the main conference hall at Reed Holdings, with glass walls, bottled water, and security outside the doors as if truth itself needed managing. Miranda sat near the far end in a cream suit, tense and overdressed. Julian Voss was already there, flipping through a folder with the calm of a man who had decided to stop being polite. I stood near the back wall. Vanessa sat at the head of the table in her chair, dressed in silk, pale and perfect and tragic. Then Nathan walked in and did not look at her. Vanessa noticed at once. "You're late." Nathan took his seat. "I had counsel." Arthur's voice turned hard. "This is not the time for games." Julian closed the folder. "Good. Then let's stop playing them." The room went still. Vanessa's gaze sharpened. "What exactly is that supposed to mean?" Julian slid the folder across the table. "It means your rehab timeline does not match your statements, your internal records, or the sympathy-driven delays you requested from this board." Miranda inhaled sharply. Arthur said nothing. Vanessa looked at the papers without touching them. "Medical recovery is not linear." Julian nodded. "True. Secrecy is." Nathan leaned back, distancing himself without moving far. "Julian, be careful." Julian looked at him. "I am. That's why I asked legal to review the dates." Arthur finally spoke. "This discussion is inappropriate." "No," Julian said. "What's inappropriate is allowing company governance to be shaped by information that appears selectively incomplete."
Vanessa turned to Nathan. "Say something." Nathan folded his hands. "I respected your privacy." I almost laughed. Vanessa stared at him. "That's not what you said last week." He did not blink. "Last week is not on record." That was the moment I knew she was alone. Julian opened another document. Assisted standing noted 6 weeks ago. Independent transfer attempts 4 weeks ago. Significant functional return earlier than disclosed. Would you like to explain why none of this reached the board? Vanessa's face changed, not into guilt, but into fury. "You all benefited from my image," she said.
"Do not pretend this company did not profit from public loyalty." Arthur snapped. "Vanessa," but she was already rising into panic. Miranda leaned forward. "Please, think before you speak." Vanessa looked around the room, at the board, at Nathan, at her father, at me. Then she gripped the arms of her chair. I saw it before anyone else did. The shift of weight, the decision. "Vanessa," Arthur said quietly. But it was too late. She stood. Not elegantly, not triumphantly, just suddenly, shakily, terribly. The room went silent. No one gasped because she could walk. They went silent because she had lied. Julian set his pen down carefully. Miranda looked like someone had slapped her in public. Arthur, for the first time since I had known him, looked old. Vanessa took one breath, then another, as if she could still turn the moment into power. "I was going to tell you," she said. Nathan stood up, but only to move away from her. "I advised transparency." That was a lie so smooth it almost sounded rehearsed. Vanessa turned on him. "You coward." He straightened his jacket. "I will not be blamed for your personal choices." Julian's voice cut through the room. "This meeting is suspended pending review." Then Vanessa looked at me, not at the board, not at Arthur, at me. There was no pride in her face now, no command, no control, only panic. "Ethan," she said, "say something." I did not move. She took a step toward me. "You know why I did this." I kept my eyes on her. "You understand me," she said, voice breaking. "Tell them." And in that moment, I finally saw the truth without any softness left to hide it. She had never loved me. She had loved what I made possible. My loyalty, my silence, my presence beside her, the way I made her look untouchable, even when she was rotting inside. "Ethan," she whispered, "please." I stayed silent, and for the first time, silence belonged to me. 3 days after the board meeting, Vanessa asked to see me alone. Daniel said, "You don't owe her that." "I know." "Then why go?" I looked at the message on my phone, because I want to hear what honesty sounds like when she has nothing left to bargain with. Daniel leaned back in his chair. "That's either closure or self-harm." "I'll let you know." Vanessa was staying in the penthouse apartment above the executive floor, away from cameras and away from the sympathy she had once worn like jewelry. When I stepped inside, the room was quiet and stripped of softness. No flowers, no assistants, no performance. She stood by the window. The sight felt unnatural, not because she was standing, but because she had destroyed so much to control when others would see it. "You came," she said. "Yes." She turned slowly. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't." A sad smile touched her mouth. "You used to come every time I called." That was before I understood the call. She nodded once. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "I did terrible things." I stayed silent. "I lied," she said. "I manipulated the board. I used my condition. I used you. I know that now." "You knew it then too." Her face tightened. "I knew what I was doing. I didn't know how empty it would feel after." "That's regret, Vanessa, not innocence." She looked down at her hands. "I was scared." "Of what?" Her answer came fast. "Becoming powerless, becoming unwanted, becoming ordinary." I watched her carefully. "For the first time in my life," she said, "I felt people might stop bending toward me. I couldn't bear it." "So you bent everyone harder?" She let out a shaky breath. "Yes." It was the first clean truth she had ever given me. Not pretty, not noble, just true.
She looked at me then, eyes bright but steady. I did not know how to be loved without control. I felt something in me ache, but it was not hope, only grief for the version of her I had once tried to believe in.
"I'm sorry," she whispered, "not because I lost, because I understand what I destroyed." I listened. That was all I had left to offer. When I stood to leave, she said, "Do you ever think you could forgive me?" I paused near the door. "Maybe one day." Her face changed slightly. Then I finished. "But forgiveness is not the same as returning." I left her with that. When I got back to Daniel's apartment, Lily was on the balcony, wrapped in a grey sweater, staring out at the city lights. She did not turn when I stepped outside. "You went," she said. "Yes." "How was she?" "Honest." That made Lily look at me. "That sounds dangerous." "It was late honesty. That's different." She studied my face. "Did it change anything?" I leaned against the railing. "No." She looked away again. "I'm glad." But her voice was too careful. I moved closer. "Say it." She laughed softly without humor. "You always do that." "Do what?" "Ask for the truth right when I'm trying to hide it." I waited. Then she said, "I don't want to be what came after pain, Ethan." My chest tightened. "Lily." "No, let me finish. I don't want to be the sister you picked because the first one broke your heart. I don't want to spend the rest of my life wondering whether I was your truth or your rebellion." I closed my eyes for 1 second, then opened them. "That's fair," I said. She blinked at me, surprised. "I loved the idea of Vanessa," I said. "Then I loved the habit of surviving her. But what I feel for you was never built from revenge." Lily's fingers tightened around the blanket on her lap. I went on. "You were the first person who asked if I was okay. The first person who spoke to me without trying to own me. The first person who made me feel like a man instead of a role." She looked at me, eyes shining. "I didn't choose you because I lost her," I said. "I chose you because when everything false started collapsing, you were the one thing that felt true." For a long time, She said nothing. Then she reached for my hand, not because the pain was gone, because she believed me. 6 months later, the noise had faded. Not disappeared, not forgiven, just settled into the background, like traffic outside a closed window. My divorce from Vanessa was final. The company scandal had moved from headlines to legal reports, then from legal reports to boardroom cautionary tales. Arthur Reed was still rich, still powerful, still dressed like a man the world obeyed, but his empire had thinned at the edges. Investors no longer trusted silence when it came from him. Directors asked questions sooner. Old allies answered his calls later. Daniel called that progress. "Falling doesn't always look dramatic," he said over coffee one morning. "Sometimes it looks like people stopping the habit of fear. You always talk like a man billing by the hour. And you always sound like a man who forgets I saved his life. You protected my paperwork." Daniel lifted his cup. "That is how grown men save each other." He stayed in my life after the worst of it passed, not as a rescuer, as a witness. He checked contracts, mocked my instincts, and made sure I never drifted back toward guilt dressed as loyalty. I started taking work again, too. Small consulting jobs at first, enough to remind me I had skills that belonged to me before anyone taught me to kneel. Grace stayed too. By then, she was helping Lily design a new accessibility program under a small foundation Lily had agreed to lead. It started with mobility grants and home adjustment support. Then it grew into counseling referrals, legal resource guides, and workshops for families who treated disability like shame. The first time I saw Lily present the plan in public, I felt something deep and quiet move through me. She sat at the front of the room with a microphone in one hand and a folder in the other, speaking with the same calm voice she once used only in corners. But there was no shrinking in her now. A donor asked, "Why does this project matter to you personally?" Lily answered without flinching, "Because I know what it means to be helped in ways that erase you. I want people to be supported without being made small."
Grace looked at me from the second row and smiled like she already knew I would be wrecked by that sentence. After the event, I found Lily near the lobby windows looking out at the rain. "You were incredible," I said. She made a face. I was nervous. "You were clear." "That's a nicer word." I stood beside her. "You would have hated this much attention a year ago." "I hated myself a year ago." I turned to her. "Do you still?" She thought about it. Less often. Less seriously. "That sounds like real healing." "It sounds like work," she said. Then she looked at me. "You helped." I shook my head. "No, I just stayed." Her expression softened. "Exactly." That was the lesson I had taken the longest to learn. Saving someone is about control. Standing beside them is about respect. For too much of my life, I had confused suffering with devotion. I thought love meant endurance, silence, and self-erasure. I thought being needed was the same as being valued. Vanessa had built her power on that confusion, and I had helped her do it by offering myself every time she reached. I do not hate her now. That surprised me more than anything. I saw her once after everything ended, not at a dramatic distance, not at some perfect moment of revenge. Just across a hotel corridor, after a charity panel neither of us expected the other to attend. She stopped when she saw me. So did I. She looked beautiful in the old way, composed and elegant, but the force around her was gone. No invisible gravity, no room bending toward her. Just a woman carrying the shape of her own choices. "Ethan," she said. "Vanessa." She glanced at the folder in my hand. "You look well." "I am." She nodded, almost to herself.
Good. I thought I might feel triumph. I did not. Only distance. She asked, "Is Lily happy?" The question caught me off guard. "She's becoming herself," I said. Vanessa gave a small, tired smile. "That sounds like happiness. Maybe it was regret. Maybe it was envy. Maybe, for the first time in her life, she had no strategy left to hide inside." I said goodbye, and that was enough. I did not win because she lost. Arthur's empire weakened. Nathan saved himself and became smaller for it. Miranda still clung to appearances. Vanessa lived without the control she once worshipped, and that was punishment enough. But none of that was victory. Victory was quieter. It was waking up without dread. It was making choices no one could purchase from me. It was hearing my own voice and not mistaking it for rebellion. One evening near the start of winter, Lily and I visited the new office space for the foundation. The walls still smelled of fresh paint. Boxes lined the hallway. Grace was arguing with a contractor about door width. Daniel was in the corner pretending not to enjoy assembling furniture badly. "This is chaos," I said. "This," Daniel replied, holding a screwdriver like a weapon, "is infrastructure." Grace rolled her eyes. "If it collapses, I'm blaming the lawyer." Lily laughed, and the sound filled the unfinished room with something warmer than polish ever could. Later, when everyone else left, we stayed behind. The city lights glowed through the tall windows. The office was still half empty, but it already felt more honest than the mansion ever had. Lily moved toward the center of the room, then stopped and looked back at me. There was no fear in her face, no apology, no question about whether she deserved to be seen. She simply reached out her hand, and this time I walked toward her without looking back.